Recording in progress. So the first part of the lecture, we did the exterior. We talked about creating glass in Arnold. We talked about all the kind of idiosyncrasies with Arnold and getting a shadow to come out when you create glass. Let's talk about doing the interior scene now, because we've got window glass that we're going to do. And there's a couple things we need to check in the window glass. So one of them is we need to turn on the display layer. That's probably the first thing. And for the day scene only, we need to check that non-visible dome light to make sure the transmission visibility is set to 0. Because if not, even though it is not visible to the camera, it will be visible when we turn glass on and make it transparent. That is transmission. So the transmission will turn that completely solid white. All right, and then we'll do a couple of items in there, maybe a bottle or two, just to get the idea of what's going on. So let me clear that. And let's just get our good old checklist set up here. And yeah, got to start up Maya. Always have to quit out whenever I'm rendering, especially the Zoom. Pretty resource intensive. All right, Nelson, thanks. Take a quick screenshot, make sure I get you in there for later. All right, so let's set project for the interior. And I'm going to do the day scene. Night scene's pretty much going to be the same if you did night. I just want to show kind of the issues you're going to have with that double dome light unless you change all the settings. All right, so let's go to the long shot, which is the living room. Let me hit 6 on the keyboard. Oh, looks like I do have my dome light image. So let's render this out and see what we get. All right. Yep, everything's there. That's really what I wanted to see. Okay. So a couple things I want to check out. Make sure everything is default. Right, so that's the non-visible dome light. Good, that's turned to default. Let's try the visible dome light. Yeah, that should all be default also. Good, that's good. And where are my windows? So easiest way to get to the windows is in the channel box layer editor. There is window geometry there. Let me select all my objects. Good, AI standard surface. Just want to make sure everything is default. All right, so we want to do the window panes for the windows first. So I'm going to go out to perspective. And you'll see when I have visibility turned on, since they are single-sided planes, you'll be able to see that I am, in fact, blocking the window. Turn it off, turn it on. All right, so let's get a render of what that looks like. And let's just crop it because we only really care about the windows for now. Let's just do that. Oh yeah, hang on a second. Let me make sure that's what I thought. Let's remove that. Let's save as. Why? Because it's Maya, it's Arnold. Let's make a copy. And let me check my render settings. Okay, ooh, my, that is scary. Let's go down here under ray depths. That's default. Awesome. Life is good. So scene auto render just a little bit quicker. Yes. All right. So now, even though I have got visibility turned on, my windows seem to be rendering. So let me close my Arnold render view and let's render again. I love you, Arnold. There we go. That's better. So a lot of times if you render like I just did, I rendered first, then I turned visibility on for the window panes. Arnold still had it stuck in its memory that it rendered. I had to close it, open it again. So now you can see basically there is no light getting into the environment. The dome lights can't get in, the sun can't get in, and all we see these little cracks where, you know, maybe the dome light or the portal lights don't quite touch everything. All right, that's okay, because that's what we want. We want to have the geometry visible. Now, one of the easiest ways, rather than going through the outliner and looking for the actual geometry, what I like to do is I like to right-click on the group and select the objects inside the group. So once I do that, notice it selects. Let's go to wireframe. There we go. So it selects all my objects. Selects all the geometry for me. Now, with that geometry selected, that's got the AI standard material on it, just the very first one I made. So I'm going to assign a new piece of, or not a new piece, a new AI standard surface to all the geometry. Shift T. And I'm going to call this window pane glass. So I know exactly what it is. So render it again. There we go. Perfect. All right. So can't see anything. That's totally fine. Let's make glass. Now, the difference between making glass with refraction and making glass without, for the window panes, is we don't have to worry about shadows for window glass. How many times do you see window glass casting a shadow in your environment? Hardly ever, right? It lets light in, and we generally don't have a shadow from the glass itself. It's only what is in front of the glass or behind the glass that gets shadowed. So for window pane glass, we basically follow all the steps except for adding in the gamma correct and adding in the sampler info. We don't need to do those. Transmission color is going to stay white because we want clear window glass. And we're going to turn on thin walled under geometry. And you'll be able to see the difference when we do that. So first, well, you know what? Let's get some reference. Living room day. Let's go big size. I'm looking for windows where I can see some kind of reflection from the environment in there. No, not really. That kind of looks like CG. If it looks like CG, it probably is. That's a really blown out image. Anything visible from the environment in here? Thought I looked at this one. I really don't see anything. Of course, it's got the window open also. Oh, there's our artificial shadows. Oof. Don't look at it. You get sick. Yeah, that's it. No more Wayfair. Well, take that back. We're just trying to find out how reflective should our stuff be. All right, well, that's not too bad. You can see there's some reflections in the windows from the environment. I don't know. I'm not a big Etsy fan there. Let's see, what do we got here? We got a little bit of reflection here. Just wanted to go back and make sure that I turned on large as far as size reference goes. So what I'm looking for is to be able to see some reflectivity of the environment inside the windows, which you should be able to. All right, we got some reflectivity here. That should be good enough to be able to use. Right here, depends on the viewing angle. Let's go with that. All right. So let's make glass. We got reference. So turn off base weight. Let's start our render up. Actually, let me just crop this area because that's really what we care about. Let's turn our base weight to 0. Oops, that's the AI standard surface. Don't want to do that. So when in doubt, select the geometry again. Select, there we go. Window pane glass, let's turn the base weight to 0. Okay, spec weight, spec color stays at the default. I'm going to leave roughness on so we can see exactly what roughness looks like. Index of refraction, 1.5, it's glass, we want that. Let's turn transmission weight up. So there we go. So now we can see through the glass, but we don't see the image anymore. And that's because that non-visible dome light has visibility in the transmission. Even though we can't see it, the transmission is actually showing the camera the light that's there. We don't want that. All right, let me stop this. Let me crop this a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so what I want to do is let's go into my directions here. All right, so for the day scene only, we want to take the non-visible dome light attributes, turn transmission to 0. So non-visible dome light, visibility. Let's take transmission and drop it to 0. So now that we did that, we've got sort of environment visibility. There's two things wrong with it. One, we've got roughness, quite a bit of roughness on the glass. So let's go back and select the geometry for the glass. Select the objects. Let's go back to the attributes. Let's turn that roughness down. All right, so I got some reflectivity in the glass. I've got reflections. And I've got the image outside, but the image doesn't look the same. That's because we are making it refract. We don't need it to refract because we're just looking through and we want to be able to see outside. So go back here. So down under geometry, which is part of the attribute, down here, it's before advanced, and there's a little switch called thin-walled. So when I click on thin-walled, now you can see I'm not having my visible dome light image refracted. Without it, it shifts the image. But with it, it now just shows me as though I were looking through and I've got some reflectivity in the environment. Now, as far as caustics, we don't really need caustics from the windows. We don't really care about caustics. We also don't really need to worry about the indirect specular to turn that up either. So we really don't need to worry about the advanced section for window glass. That's kind of overkill for what we needed to do. We just need it to be reflective and transparent. All right, so here it is without the glass in it. And here it is with the glass. So you can see we have reflections from the environment inside. So does that make sense? It's pretty simple. You don't have to worry about adding in the gamma correct, the sampler info. You don't really have to worry about adding in caustics or indirect specular. You just have to remember, if it's for windows, you turn on thin-walled under geometry. Now, the only thing I might do here is add just a little bit of roughness into the glass. It is not going to be perfect, but not as much as was there initially. So for this, I'm just going to add in, I don't know, 0.0. Let's try 0.2. And I'm going to add it under, well, notice I can't add extra roughness in. Because I turned thin wall on. So I can just control, since I'm really getting transparency and reflections. I'm not getting transmission, or I'm not really getting refraction. That's why extra roughness isn't available. But just give it a little bit of roughness in the specular, and that's enough to make it look like normal window glass. That's not going to be perfectly clean all the time. All right, questions? Make sense? All right, let's do the Klein bottle on the table. All right, so Klein bottle, you're better off getting a bunch of reference of all different kinds of glass colors, because each piece of glass needs to have a different color in it, except for the vase. So in the scene, the vase is right above the TV, right there. There's the hourglass bottle. That needs to be a color. So the vase is clear, that's color. There's a rectangular color bottle on the table. The Klein bottle is color right there. And there is also a wine glass and wine inside of it. So the wine glass is going to be clear like it was in the exterior. And then whatever beverage you want in there. So notice that, where's that at? Bottles group. Oops. I want to do that. Go back here. So this might not be visible. Though you can't really be sure because you might get reflections off of the close-up. I would say go ahead, you're gonna have to do that anyway. All right, so let's get some reference for color glass. Let's go. Oh, colored glass bottles inside. All right, so remember, you want good reference. You don't want magical matrix reference. Bottles on a window are pretty cool. Make sure you change tool size to large. That way you're not finding the perfect bottle, but it's too damn small. Pardon my French. All right, so you want to avoid artificially colored bottles. Nope, stop that. Really? Okay. All right, want to avoid this. Avoid sparkly lights inside. Avoid CG. That's not too bad. Try and find it in an environment. These are really old bottles, so if you're interested in making something look old, there is reference, and you can see the purity of the glass is not that great. It's actually quite rough looking. So this is not quite 1K. They're all right. This one looks like somebody did it in their garage. You can still see a light source. It's actually in an environment. Avoid colored backgrounds. It's going to be hard to pick a color from that. And of course, the bottles need to be empty. And, different colors always make it easier. This way you don't need to find, 10 different pieces of reference. So these aren't looking bad right now. Let's see what else we got here. Ooh. Yeah, still going to show me the same stuff. Okay. Let's just color glass bottles. Okay. Ooh, that's nice. That's hand-blown glass. I like those colors. Let's do that. Desktop. Okay, they're subtle, not being too perfect. You can see hand-blown glass, a lot of imperfections in it. That's what gives it the charm. The fact that it's handmade. So we can be a little generous with the roughness compared to what we did earlier. All right, so I got reference. Let's assign a new AI standard material to our Klein bottle. And let's render this out. There we go. And let's crop the area. Only need that much. All right, so what's the first thing on the checklist? Making glass. We found reference. I should say, what's the third thing? Because we assigned a new AI standard material. Yep, let's turn off the base weight. There we go. Now what? Yep, specular weight's at 1. Specular color is white. That's the default. Yeah, just the roughness. I'll turn it off for now, but eventually we're going to add some because that hand-blown glass is a little on the rough side. All right, so now, where are we at? Yep. So the IOR is at 1.5 by default, right there. Well, let's do weight. Let's turn weight on, see what we get, the transmission weight. So notice we get it, but we don't get a shadow. We had a nice shadow before. So now we have no shadow whatsoever. However, that's fixable. So now we perform our alchemy magic. So in the transmission weight, what do we do first? All right, well, first we need to click on the input so that we bring up the create render node. Don't forget, we need to add, this is how you get to the Maya utility. So you need to click on that little checker input button, brings up create render node. We go to utilities under Maya. We choose gamma correct. And what do we do now? Yep, out value X. All right, Jerry got it, transmission. And now we can close it. Now we need to make a few adjustments here. All right, so Jerry's got it. So gamma X is 4, gamma Y is 0, Gamma Z is 0. So far, so good. What's next? All right, so we did that. We go into value. This is where we plug our sampler info. Click the input button. We go back to Maya utilities. It's alphabetical, so we go down to S. Sampler info right there. Left side of sampler info, we choose facing ratio. Where do we plug it in on the right? So outputs, facing ratio, inputs. Yep, you got it, value X. So now we've got shadows. We hit close. One other thing, a couple other things to do. One of them is, let's add our color in. Color goes into where? What part of the material? Color for glass. So if you take a look at the checklist, transmission color. If we leave it white, it will be clear glass. And I'm going to double click transmission color to bring up the advanced color picker. And I want to load my reference into my color wheel section under image. So there it is. So which one shall we make it? We got a choice of green, orange, and blue, because the only clear pieces of glass are the vase and the wine glass next to the sofa. Orange, okay. That seems like a pretty good color. So let's avoid really dark and really light highlights. So we want to go somewhere pretty bright. But not too bright. All right, so I want to bump up my value a little bit. I always like to keep my value with color pretty close to being pure. And it's a little on the yellowy side compared to my reference. So I'm going to add just a little more orange here. I don't want to go too far red. All right, so we got a couple things going on. I'm going to click done. I can always adjust that after. And if I compare it with my reference, looks really dark on the back side of that glass. So there's a couple more things I need to do to make this glass look more like glass. You go under the checklist. We've already got color in there. We want to turn caustics on. And we want to push the indirect specular to 1.1. All right, so they're both under advanced. So caustics and indirect specular 1.1. And how many surfaces does the camera have to go through for that Klein bottle? 8, right. So let's go under here, take a look. So we got 8. So 8's the bare minimum. What happens if I bump it up past 8? Let's go 10. So it means I need to bump this up to 12. This up to 12. Let's keep that. And let me drop it back down to 8. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to see if I throw any more transmission, what is it going to do? Will I be able to see a difference? And honestly, there is no difference between my transmission at 8 and my transmission at 10. So I'm going to keep it at 8. That's going to be a lot quicker to render. Now, one thing I might do is add a little more specular here. So I might bump specular up to 2. So it increases a little bit of the bounce. Now, part of the problem I'm seeing black on the other side is I don't have any color on my wall, and it's a pretty grainy render. But you can see my shadow, that looks like it should. It's got color in it. It's really soft because of that portal light. All right, so interior, exterior, same process, whether it's the wine bottle or it's one of the interior glass bottles. Questions? Yes. Okay. So you plugged your gamma correct in, right? Under gamma, did you change the XYZ attributes? Yeah. Okay. Then in the gamma, right above the attributes, there's value. That's where you plug your sampler info in. Yeah, it's still a utility. See right here, sampler info utility. Did you click the input button? Under value. Well, that's how you get the sampler info. What's that? Wait, Haley, don't do it for him. Here, show me your computer, Isaiah. All right, so where are you stuck? Are you under, remember it's alphabetical. Right. So did you go under S? Okay. All right. We got that. All right. Anybody else have any questions? That's a good question, actually, because this is the time to get stuck while we're in lecture, and then in lab, you can get help also. I was looking for M there instead of S as well. Ah. Okay, Nelson's good. Daniel, looks like you got it worked out. So sampler info is a Maya utility. Don't forget, all the Maya utilities are alphabetical. The only two we're really using is gamma correct and sampler info. So I guess I could put, to make it clearer, plug in a Maya utility or a sampler info Maya utility. That would probably make more sense. All right, so let's do that. Plug in a sampler or a Maya info, sampler info Maya utility. Okay. So any other questions? Now, if you guys want to get a critique in lab today or tomorrow in Discord, basically the easiest way to do it is do a final production render, put it in your templates, put your reference collaged above it. And then for Discord, save it as a PNG or export it as a PNG, not a target, because then you can post it right in Discord and we can see it and not have to download it. But if you're going to do it in lab here, you can certainly bring your computer up to Frank or Ari, or you could still post it as a PNG in Discord. They can give you feedback there too. So however you guys want to do it. So let's take, if there are no more questions, let me kind of show you my approach for putting a material on the table. I'll show you how I work with taking the color out of the reference image, which I think I showed you the other day. All right, so I want to find, I've already found reference for the table. Where's that at? Material reference. All right. Well, let's go here. I think it's under this. That's all glass reference. Ah, there we go. So I happen to like this table because, well, it's got a couple things on it. It's got a lamp. It's got a good angle for reflectivity, just like that's pretty close to the angle I'll be looking at there. And it's got a computer and the walls aren't too bad. So, but what I want to do is I want to actually apply the material and get my table to look like this. But I don't want to be distracted by color. So in the Mac preview program, I'm going to go adjust my color and turn this saturation all the way down. So right now I'm only looking at value information. So first thing I'm going to do, assign a new material to the table. So this will be my computer desk. And let's give it the default 0.18 value that the other objects have. And let's just crop out the table. And actually, really what I'm interested in is the reflectivity that I see. I'm not really interested too much in the front of the table, because really this angle right here is going to tell me how reflective I need my table to be. All right, so a couple of things I want to do. First off, the default reflectivity is not bad. And the default roughness isn't too bad either. What I want to do is, let me see if I can get the value here. So it's got to be darker in order to match my desk. Right, so it's got to be a little darker. I can also bring in my image into Maya and sample it, but this is only temporary. My color's still there. All right, so it looks like it could be, the value could be a little darker. And it looks like my reflectivity could be a little less rough. So let's try reflectivity, roughness, or specular roughness. 0.1. It's a little too clear. Let's try 0.15. So needs to get a little rougher. No, I guess 0.2 was where I was. So what I'm trying to do is hold some detail where the reflection's close to the base, but then it gets pretty blurry further away. So I got some detail here, but then it starts to break apart, which is really what I want. So actually, I might keep it like that for now. Let's try adding a little more. Oh, that feels a little bit better. Still got some detail here, it falls apart more. All right, let me reset this. So now that I've done that, let's add color. And for this, I'm definitely going to use my color swatch, double click on it, load in my reference. And I'm going to try and find an area that's a good representation of the color. All right, so my value is way low. So I'm going to keep an eye on that as I try to sample the color here. All right, so let me lower my value somewhere around there. No, that's not it. So it depends. This is in direct light. This area is more towards shadowy. So then I just want to make sure I try and get the amount of value in there. Since I can't get all the green and everything in there, just trying to get a good average of all the colors I have. And I might want to increase the saturation a little too. Yeah, it makes it look a little better. Too desaturated. And then work on the lamp, work on anything else that you're using the same reference for. All right, hopefully that's helpful. Like I said, I like to turn off the color, turn off the saturation in the color just so I can see what it looks like in black and white, try and get the reflectivity, try and get the value, and then add color in. And then you always have to kind of fine tune the color and with the saturation and the value. All right, any questions? Jerry's good. How about campus? Anybody got questions? Everybody's good? Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much the process, Maxwell, for the whole scene. If we have the nighttime Zen garden scene, can we go on campus at night to get reference pictures? Yes, campus is open. I was going to say you should probably come into lab because then you can get, you can be in lab and then Frank and Ari can help you out. And you can just say, hey, I want to go in the back and take some reference pictures of the Zen garden. And you can take them at night before lab's over. Or after lab anyway. Because it'll be dark enough then. All right, so we're going to treat this last 40 minutes like a lab. If anybody has any questions, let me know. If you need help with anything, I'll be right here. I'm just going to mute myself. I'm going to stop the recording.